Title: Whispers in the Forest. In the heart of a sprawling forest that was alive with ancient, untamed energy, a young mother named Aisha cradled her 6-month-old son, Ibrahim. Her journey into the wilderness wasn't by choice but by necessity, a desperate attempt to escape the cruelties of a life that had cornered her. The forest was her refuge, a labyrinth of towering trees and thick undergrowth that promised concealment but held secrets of its own. The day was fading, and as the golden light of the setting sun threaded through the leaves, Aisha found herself a makeshift shelter. It was an abandoned hunter's hut, weather-beaten but still sturdy. She gathered whatever scraps of wood she could find and managed to light a small fire. The warmth calmed her nerves, but the silence around her was unnerving. The forest was too still, too quiet, as if it were holding its breath. Ibrahim cooed softly in her arms, his tiny hands reaching for her face. His innocence was her anchor, her reason to keep moving forward. But as night fell, the shadows stretched and deepened, and an unsettling feeling crept into her heart. The first encounter. The first sign came as a whisper, a faint, unintelligible sound that seemed to drift on the night wind. At first, Aisha thought it was her imagination. She pulled Ibrahim closer, her maternal instincts sharpening. The fire crackled, casting flickering light on the hut's walls, but the whispering grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't in any language she knew, yet it wasn't entirely foreign. It was a murmur of ancient tongues, layered voices that spoke as one. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. The forest answered with silence. Then a rustling sound came from the trees outside. Aisha's heart raced as she peered out through a small crack in the wooden wall. The firelight didn't reach far, but in the darkness she caught a glimpse of something, a figure standing just beyond the tree line. It wasn't human. The silhouette was tall, impossibly so, with limbs that seemed to twist unnaturally. Its eyes glowed faintly like embers in the night. Aisha froze, her breath caught in her throat. The figure didn't move, but its presence was suffocating, like a weight pressing down on her chest. Ibrahim whimpered, sensing her fear. She clutched him tightly, whispering prayers under her breath. The figure began to move, its steps eerily silent. It was circling the hut, slow and deliberate, as if savoring her terror. The jinn reveals itself. The fire sputtered suddenly, as if an unseen hand had tried to extinguish it. Aisha scrambled to throw more wood onto the flames, but the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Her breath misted in the air, and Ibrahim began to cry, his wails piercing the eerie stillness. And then it spoke. "You have entered a place that does not belong to you," the voice echoed, low and resonant. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, filling the hut with its presence. "Why have you disturbed our peace?" Aisha's mind raced. She had heard stories of the jinn, beings of smokeless fire who dwelled in the unseen world. Her grandmother used to tell tales of their power, their capriciousness, and the dangers of crossing them. "I mean no harm," she managed to say, her voice shaking. "I'm just passing through. Please leave us alone." The air seemed to shimmer, and suddenly the figure was inside the hut. It was neither fully solid nor entirely ethereal, a being that defied the rules of the physical world. Its face was obscured, but its eyes burned with an unnatural light. "You carry a child of light," it said, its tone both curious and menacing. "His soul shines brighter than most. He is different." Aisha instinctively shielded Ibrahim, holding him close to her chest. "Stay away from him," she pleaded. "He's just a baby." The jinn tilted its head as if studying her. "Do you know what you have brought into my domain?" it asked. "The child is marked, destined for a path that will intertwine with forces beyond your comprehension." The test of courage. The jinn raised a hand, and the fire in the hut flared, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. Aisha felt a pressure in her head, as if the creature was probing her thoughts. "Why do you flee, human?" it asked. "What drives you into the arms of the unknown?" Tears streamed down Aisha's face as she recounted her story. She spoke of a cruel husband, a life of suffering, and the need to protect her son at all costs. The jinn listened, its expression unreadable. "You are brave," it said finally, "but bravery is not enough. To leave this forest alive, you must prove your worth. Your child's life depends on it." "What do you want from me?" she asked, desperation in her voice. The jinn gestured, and the walls of the hut dissolved, revealing the forest bathed in an otherworldly glow. The trees seemed taller, their branches twisted like claws. The air was thick with the scent of decay. "You will face 3 trials," the jinn said. "Succeed and you may leave. Fail and your souls will remain here forever." The first trial, the labyrinth of shadows. The ground beneath Aisha's feet shifted, and she found herself standing at the entrance of a labyrinth made of black stone. The jinn's voice echoed in her mind. Find the light that guides the way, but beware the shadows. They hunger for fear. Clutching Ibrahim tightly, she stepped into the labyrinth. The air was heavy and the silence was oppressive. She could feel unseen eyes watching her, the weight of their gaze chilling her to the bone. As she navigated the twisting corridors, shadows began to move, detaching themselves from the walls. They slithered across the floor, their shapes amorphous and sinister. One of them lunged at her and she screamed, stumbling backward. The shadow stopped short, recoiling as if repelled by something. Ibrahim's cries grew louder, and Aisha realized that the light emanating from him was keeping the shadows at bay. She held him higher, using his glow to guide her. After what felt like hours, she reached the labyrinth's center, where a single flame floated in midair. She reached out and touched it, and the labyrinth dissolved. You have passed the first trial, the jinn's voice said. But the path ahead is perilous. The second trial, the mirror of truth. Aisha found herself in a clearing, where a massive mirror stood framed by gnarled tree roots. The surface of the mirror rippled like water, and the jinn appeared within it. Look into the mirror, it commanded. Face your truth. She hesitated, but the jinn's gaze compelled her. As she looked, the mirror showed her darkest fears and deepest regrets. She saw herself as a child, crying as her parents fought. She saw her husband's anger, his fists raised in fury. She saw herself failing Ibrahim, unable to protect him from a cruel world. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't look away. I am not perfect, she said, her voice steady, but I will fight for my son. I will not let my past define me. The mirror shattered, and the jinn's voice rang out. You have faced your truth. One trial remains. The final trial, the choice. The forest shifted again, and Aisha found herself standing before a chasm. On the other side was a path leading out of the forest, bathed in warm sunlight. The jinn appeared beside her. Here is your final trial, it said. To cross, you must leave something behind. Something precious. A bridge began to form, its planks appearing one by one. But with each step Aisha took, the bridge started to crumble behind her. She realized that if she crossed, there would be no way back. The jinn's voice echoed in her mind. Your son is marked, destined for greatness, but also for suffering. Leave him here, and he will be spared a life of hardship. Cross with him, and you both will face an uncertain future. Aisha's heart ached. She looked at Ibrahim, his innocent eyes staring up at her. The thought of leaving him was unbearable, but the fear of what lay ahead was equally daunting. No, she said firmly. I will not abandon my son. Whatever the future holds, we will face it together. She stepped onto the final plank, and the bridge solidified beneath her. The jinn's laughter echoed around her, but it wasn't cruel, it was almost approving. You have passed, it said. Your love and courage have proven stronger than fear. Go, and may your journey be blessed. The aftermath. As Aisha stepped out of the forest, the sunlight warmed her face, and she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The jinn's presence faded, but its words lingered in her mind. Ibrahim cooed softly, and she held him close, vowing to protect him no matter what. The forest had tested her, revealed her deepest fears, but it had also shown her strength she didn't know she had. And though she was free, she knew the jinn's words were not just a warning, they were a promise. Ibrahim's path would not be easy, but Aisha was ready to face whatever came their way. For now, they had each other, and that was enough.